The little orange kitten that was being taken care of by the campus heartthrob, Jason Wilson, bumped into me. It was such a tiny ball, lying on its back beside my pillow fast asleep. The first time I returned the kitten, Jason and I didn't see eye to eye. But among the many students on campus, it always targeted me. Jason got anxious and picked up his beloved cat, Orange Wilson, and questioned, "Do you like Daddy or Mommy more?" Orange was like a son to Jason. At that time, he had just finished the freshman military training before starting school. On his way back from dinner with his new roommate, he happened to see a few students rescuing a kitten. He wasn't interested in keeping pets at all. Just as he was about to walk around the crowd, somehow a tiny kitten grabbed his pant leg and acted like it was hit by him. At that time, Orange was just a pitiful little thing the size of a palm, with its claws hooked on his shoelace and couldn't get off, meowing desperately with its eyes closed. So Jason and his roommate took it back to the dormitory. Although the dormitory supervisor had repeatedly emphasized that students couldn't use unauthorized electrical appliances or keep living animals in the dorm, there's always a way. His roommate specially borrowed some goat milk powder for kittens from a female classmate and finally managed to keep the little kitten alive that day. At that time, there were two relatively hidden bars around T University besides the internet cafes, which were quite tempting for the college students. Originally, the guys had planned to go for a stroll after class that day, but something unexpected happened to Jason. When night fell, the little kitten would get extremely anxious and meow non-stop in the dormitory as soon as it couldn't see Jason. Eventually, its voice was almost gone, and it started vomiting milk while lying on the bed. When Jason returned to the dormitory to change clothes, he saw his bed in a complete mess. Maybe the little guy was exhausted from meowing, and it was sound asleep right in the dirty mess it had made. There was no way he could have any nightlife now. Even getting a good night's sleep became a problem for Jason. Fortunately, there were clean bedding sets in the supermarket outside for emergencies. He rolled up his soiled sheets and threw them into the trash can outside. When he came back, he saw the little guy lying in the corner, sleeping with all four paws in the air. Even though Jason wasn't very fond of small animals, he just couldn't get angry with a tiny kitten. But when he picked up a coat and was about to go out to buy a new set of sheets, the little kitten suddenly woke up. There were still milk stains on its fur, but it still staggered towards him. Jason had no choice but to stuff it into the pocket of his sweatshirt and take it to the supermarket outside with him. Later, someone secretly took a picture of Jason with the kitten in his pocket and posted it on the school's confession wall. Overnight, he became well known. He not only won the title of the campus heartthrob of T University but also attracted countless admirers. When the kitten was about 2 months old, it became more and more lively. It was never well behaved in the dormitory. Once, it ran out through the window railing and got lost outside the library, which was quite far away. At that time, the university didn't have strict regulations on stray cats and dogs, and you could occasionally see some familiar furry faces. Outside the library, the little kitten encountered a teddy dog that had been abandoned by a student. The dog was small but extremely fierce. The kitten was chased and ran around blindly, then crashed into the green belt beside it. Its hind leg was scratched by the dry branches inside. It was shivering and meowing in pain. I happened to pass by at that time. The once arrogant teddy immediately turned into a pitiful creature when it saw someone coming and slunk away. By the time I came out of the library, it was completely dark. When I passed by the green belt, I faintly heard some noise. I thought it was a mouse or something. But as I walked further, the sound became more and more shrill and miserable. It didn't sound like a mouse at all. So I turned back, turned on my flashlight, and squatted beside the green belt following the sound. It didn't take much effort for me to pull out an orange kitten from it. Its hind leg was bleeding, obviously injured. As soon as it was picked up, it stopped meowing. Since there was no one around, I had to take it back to my dormitory to treat its wound briefly. When I applied the medicine, the kitten shivered in pain but still obediently leaned against me, curling up into a soft little ball. My roommate came back even later than me. As soon as she entered the room, she started talking about the latest news in the afternoon. "Do you know? There was a post this afternoon saying that the cat of the campus heartthrob in our college was lost. My goodness, half of the girls in the school have gone out to look for the cat. It's quite a spectacle." Just as she finished speaking, she saw the kitten sleeping soundly on my cushion. My roommate was stunned. Where did you find it? I didn't look up, still focusing on my book, and casually replied, outside the library. My roommate smacked her lips and said, "See, it pays to study more." The next day, I found someone to contact Jason and arranged a place to return the little orange kitten to him. That was my first encounter with Jason. There wasn't really that kind of love at first sight spark. To be honest, as a boy from an excellent family and with extremely outstanding personal conditions, Jason didn't have any special impression of me, a nerdy academic overachiever. Coincidentally, I naturally held a bit of prejudice against men who were overly good-looking. Our first encounter started with a hello and ended with a thank you. And at least one of us didn't give the other a passing score. However, in the middle of the next night, I was woken up by the sudden snoring beside my pillow. Orange, Jason's little orange cat, somehow managed to find its way back to my dormitory and sneaked in. When I went to Jason's place with the cat in my hands for the second time, he didn't have the mood to judge my old-fashioned dressing style. His own hand-raised cat had gone to someone else's dormitory to sleep in the bed for no reason. It was like being disowned by one's own son. This time, we even skipped the false politeness. When I was leaving, only the little kitten was still reluctantly rubbing against my coat sleeve. But soon, we met for the second, then the third time. When I heard that sudden little snoring sound again in the middle of the night, I could calmly turn over and go back to sleep. And in a half-asleep, half-awake state, I even considered whether to buy a simple cat bed. The next morning, the cat bed was delivered to my door on its own. Along with it came cat food, milk powder, hairball paste, cat litter, and a few simple cat toys. And also, Jason, who didn't look very happy. His meaning was very simple. Since his cat liked to stay here, he might as well just leave it in my dormitory. He would still be responsible for all the other necessities. But I refused. Different from Jason's spacious double-occupancy dormitory, I lived in a regular 4-person dormitory. The private space was already small, and there was simply no room to keep an extra pet. Because of the cat's living situation, we parted on bad terms again. As the winter vacation was approaching, the school organized a 2-person debate competition. The topic was a bit strange, and I was selected to be the first debater for the affirmative side. But things didn't start well. In the first round, our second debater was completely crushed by the other side. Before the start of the second round, there was an accident with my teammate, and we had to replace the second debater. As the saying goes, replacing a team member at the last minute is the most fatal. Just when I was preparing for the competition with the thought of it can't get any worse, I found that the new second debater was Jason. I was very confused. But after the start of the debate, I found that the seemingly carefree playboy was not only a teammate I could trust with my back but also a sharp sword. The final victory was actually within my expectation. In the following debates, rather than aiming for victory, I was more enjoying the process of collaborating with Jason. After the competition, we won a prize provided by the sponsor, a newly developed robotic vacuum cleaner. It suddenly started to snow heavily on the day we went to receive the prize, and within a few hours, there was already a thick layer of snow. We slowly walked along the gravel path towards the dormitory building. Jason carried the robotic vacuum cleaner, and I held the cat. Orange liked to burrow into my down jacket. Nestled against the soft and warm sweater, it only showed its furry head, curiously looking at the large flakes of falling snow. Afraid that it would fall, I crossed my arms in front of my abdomen, holding the cat's bottom while trudging through the snow step by step. Jason walked ahead alone with the bulky machine. He had long limbs and took big steps, and soon he was far ahead of us. Knowing that I didn't have legs as long as 189 centimeters, I walked slowly behind with Orange, stepping on the snow. Suddenly, Jason stopped. He stood there and waited for a while, and finally couldn't help but turn back. I was holding a handful of snow for the little kitten in my arms to see. My cheeks and nose were a bit red from the cold wind, and there were even ice crystals on my eyelashes. Jason stood beside me. Looking down at something, he suddenly asked, "How tall are you?" I was a bit puzzled but still answered truthfully, 164 centimeters. "I'm 189 centimeters, he said. I was completely confused and then was surprised to find that he was almost right beside me. So much so that when I looked up, I could see Jason's well-defined jawline. The snow was getting heavier, and it was gradually getting dark. The lights on both sides of the gravel path came on one by one, making the snowflakes even more visible. I reached out my hand to catch a snowflake and held it in front of Orange's eyes. Orange didn't understand what it was and gently licked it with its tongue, but then shivered from the cold of the temperature in my palm. I couldn't help but smile. When I came to my senses, I found that Jason was still up ahead and hadn't left. "Why don't you go first?" I said. After all, we had just collaborated in a competition together. I explained somewhat awkwardly, "I'm wearing thick clothes, so I'll walk slower in the snow." Jason didn't say a word. He turned around and walked a few steps forward. But this time, he deliberately slowed down and took smaller steps. After a moment of hesitation, I quietly held Orange in my arms and stepped on the footprints he had already flattened out in the snow behind him. Most of the time, Orange preferred to stick to me. It had grown so fast that now its head could barely fit into my coat pocket. So I had to wear looser coats to secretly hide it in my arms and take it to the library. Jason was happy to be an empty nest dad. Every day, he just prepared necessities like cat food and dried fish in the dorm. He even asked me for my class schedule. When I had classes, he would pick up the cat in advance. After feeding this rebellious son to his heart's content, he would bring the cat back right when my class ended. Sometimes, if he came early, he would just stand at the classroom door with the cat in his hand and wait. At first, it caused quite a stir. Even Jason's childhood friend found it amusing and said, "Those who know think you're just doing a handover. Those who don't know might think you're picking up your girlfriend for class every day." By the time this joke reached my ears, it had already changed its meaning. There were quite a few girls in the class who had a crush on Jason. Rumors started to spread. They said I was lucky to have found Orange. They also said I was good at taking care of cats and had even charmed the cat's owner. Whether it was nice, mean, or deliberately targeted, it was all condensed in a teasing look or a strange smile. But at that time, I could still hold my head high and build an invulnerable armor around myself. Jason didn't like the breakfast in the school canteen. Sometimes, he would order morning tea takeaways from nearby restaurants. If he came to pick up the cat when I had an early class, he would order an extra portion for me. Of course, I refused, and Jason didn't force me. But the next time, he did the same thing. He couldn't finish the extra food he ordered and would end up throwing it away. I couldn't stand his wastefulness, and since I couldn't stop him, I finally gave in. Gradually, I got used to having breakfast with Jason on days when I had morning classes. That winter seemed especially cold. The breath you exhaled would turn into a misty ice in the next second. The freshmen in the first year were taking exams in the classroom like crazy. After the exams, their dazed heads were awakened by the cold wind outside, and they got excited again. They gathered together and started chattering about how to spend the winter vacation. It seemed that as long as they didn't fail the exams, everything would be fine. Jason was going to fly to New Zealand for the winter vacation and the new year. His family had left in advance, and they had also bought a ticket for him. Before the holiday, he asked me out to discuss what to do with Orange. After all, Orange was his cat. But this old dad was worried that this pampered son would not adapt to the environment in Australia. So he asked if he could leave the cat at my place for the winter vacation. I hesitated and was silent for a while, unable to give a definite answer. Let me think of a way. For someone like Jason, boarding a pet wasn't really a big deal. He probably came to me first because it was convenient. My family was in the local area, and there was no need to prepare extra cat supplies. It seemed like it shouldn't be a problem to just take in a little cat for the winter vacation. So when he first heard my answer, Jason naturally thought it was just an excuse. He thought I didn't want to take on this trouble. But it wasn't the case. I really needed to think of a way. In contrast to Jason's smooth and glorious life, I hadn't had a home since I was in the second grade of junior high school after a car accident. My uncle and aunt took me in with the compensation from my parents' accident. The reason I chose to come to T University was very simple: it offered the most scholarships. Living under someone else's roof, I could barely take care of myself, let alone a cat. Before I knew it, the winter vacation had arrived. I waited at the entrance of the boys' dormitory in advance as we had agreed to pick up the cat. But in the end, I saw Jason come out empty-handed. "Where's the cat?" It didn't come, he said, with his hands in his pockets, his tone calm and a bit aloof. I knew I was misunderstood but didn't bother explaining anything. I just said oh and was about to leave when an arm quickly stopped me. Sorry, Jason apologized to me. I didn't realize how difficult owning a cat would be for you before. His words were open and sincere. I lowered my eyes slightly, the curve of my lashes blocking my view, leaving only the sight of the dusty gray concrete beneath my feet. The cracks in the ground stretched outward endlessly, disappearing into the distance. My family situation wasn't exactly a secret, but now I felt an inexplicable awkwardness. You don't need to apologize, I said, lifting my head as I tried to maintain my usual calm and detached demeanor. Yet Jason suddenly smiled. Even though the cat isn't here yet, I have something else I'd like to leave with you. He held out his palm toward me, showing a key and an access card strung together in his fair, clean hand. This is my own place. Usually, no one goes there, and right now, only the cat lives there. It must have missed you quite a bit over the last few days. After winter break actually began, I found a part-time job at a convenience store near my uncle's place, and I occasionally tutored middle school students too. If the tutoring session ended early on a given day, I'd take the bus to Jason's apartment to play with Orange for half a day, treating it as a little break for myself. Honestly, after my parents passed away, they left behind 2 properties. The one in the city center was now home to my uncle, aunt, their son, and me. It was the old house where I'd lived with my parents for over 10 years, everything about it felt familiar, yet every time I went back, I seemed like an outsider. On Chinese New Year's Day, the temperature had already dropped to -10 degrees. Because of my cousin's grandmother's visit, my family ate the New Year's Eve dinner early. Everyone squeezed into the small living room, chatting and laughing, except for my cousin who was still sulking after a big fight with his parents about his grades just 2 days earlier. Once again, I was dragged out as that exemplary child from another family for comparison. My aunt offered a perfunctory agreement, but only my cousin's grandmother seemed upset about her grandson being overshadowed. The old lady snapped casually, "What's the point of a girl knowing so much? Our Xian will have great achievements in the future." Once the elder spoke, the rest of the scene quickly shifted toward forced displays of familial affection. I sat alone on a stool to the right and watched some of the Spring Festival gala. Amid the laughter and merriment, my silence stood out especially starkly. In the end, I took the key under the pretext of going out for a walk and left home. Because it was Chinese New Year, the bus stopped running much earlier. I happened to catch the very last bus. Sitting in the empty carriage, I rode around aimlessly but still got off near Jason's home. Jason's place had 2 large floor-to-ceiling windows. Without turning on the overhead light, I sat on the floor in the dark by the window, holding Orange in my arms. Suddenly, someone set off fireworks by the riverbank, brilliant bursts of light exploding in the quiet, deep sky, a cascade of shimmering brilliance everywhere you looked. Then, the apartment lock clicked open. Jason walked in, wearing a not-so-thick cashmere coat and bringing a rush of tired, chilly air with him. He said Australia was boring and that coming home to see Orange was better. Jason picked up 2 freeze-dried treats to tease Orange, that long-sought-after fur ball, but Orange just yawned lazily in my arms without even sparing a glance. Unfazed, Jason walked over and sat down right beside me. The dazzling fireworks reflected in the giant glass turned into fleeting starlight. "Emily, am I the first guy who's ever watched fireworks with you?" Jason suddenly looked at me, the fireworks sparkling like a sea of stars in his eyes. My heart skipped a beat for no reason, and I instinctively held Orange tighter without answering. Jason turned away, resting his weight on his arms behind him in a casual, natural pose. Just as the fireworks were about to fade, I heard him say, "But you are." After the new semester started, Jason and I resumed our daily routine of handing off Orange at fixed times. Jason sometimes organized so-called study sessions, essentially me tutoring him and his roommates' childhood friends to review material. He even rented an off-campus apartment specifically for these sessions. The ambitious study sessions began with great fanfare but ultimately fizzled out halfway. Jason's childhood friends ended up looking pale as ghosts, claiming their textbooks contained soul-sucking demons. They even tried recruiting me to broaden our horizons at bars. "The fruit platters there are unlimited, Emily, Jason's treating anyway," they'd say. Jason would just lazily lift his eyelids, smirk, and never refuted the claim. Though the study group disbanded, Jason kept the apartment. With a year-long lease, breaking it would forfeit 3 months' rent. Without hesitation, he tossed me the keys. I need a napping spot occasionally, it's yours the rest of the time. Yet I ended up using it almost exclusively. Sometimes I'd find Jason actually asleep on the sofa, never minding my presence. Once, half asleep with a nasal voice, he mumbled for me to cover him with a blanket. Since the rental had no bedding, I draped my coat over him instead. By then he'd fallen deeply asleep again, his defined eyelids and fan-like lashes casting perfect shadows beneath his eyes. When packing my notes for class later, I noticed Jason was awake. He sat clutching my coat with sleep-dazed eyes. Reaching for it, I found him tightening his grip. I tugged gently until he suddenly snapped to awareness, rubbing his face before releasing it. "Thanks. Earlier." His voice came out unusually hoarse. Unsure what he meant but feeling my ears burn, I hurried out as something long, contained began emerging from its cocoon. During sophomore year's research project, the department lacked specialized books. I eventually found myself at the city library where Jason sat reserving an adjacent seat. Uncertain why, I deliberately avoided that table. But in the crowded weekend library, juggling heavy texts while hesitating, my phone buzzed. "Look up, genius." Instinctively lifting my head, I saw Jason tapping his pen beside the empty seat with a bright smile. Mumbling thanks, I slid quietly into the chair beside him. The dense material left me dizzy after hours. Rubbing tired eyes, I glanced sideways to find Jason dozing with his head propped up. "Hey," I whispered. When he didn't respond, I nudged his hand with my pen cap only for him to seize it instantly. "Gotcha." Grinning like a sly fox clutching my pen, he made my cheeks flush. Abandoning the pen to him, I watched as he stretched and noticed the darkening sky outside. "How'd you get here?" I was confused and answered truthfully, "By bus." Jason then pointed at the French window of the library and said, "It's getting cloudy." Only then did I notice the abnormal weather. I quickly packed my things and rushed to catch the bus. After squeezing onto the bus, I saw that Jason had sent me a photo of a signature pen with the caption, "It's incredibly good to use." I couldn't help but burst out laughing on the bus. The air conditioning on the bus was turned up high. I was sleepy but also forced to stay awake because of the cold. After the bus had been running for a while, the sky suddenly turned an eerie earth yellow. An ant beside me casually complained, "Oh, it seems there's going to be a heavy rain soon." Heavy rain. It was only 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but the sky had already become extremely dim. I called Jason, but the line was always busy. The thunder rumbled menacingly, indicating that a storm was coming. I hung up the phone and got off at the next stop. After buying 2 umbrellas, I hurriedly took a taxi back to the library. Halfway there, a heavy rain poured down. There was gradually water accumulating outside the city library, and the taxis passing by all lit up their red occupied signs. The dense rain formed a curtain. As I got closer, I saw many people standing at the library entrance, and among them, a tall and slender young man was particularly noticeable. It was Jason. Jason had just stuffed his phone back into his pocket when he saw a thin figure walking through the water from the side of the library with an umbrella. "I saw the bad weather and that you didn't bring an umbrella. I originally planned to bring you the umbrella and then go back. But unexpectedly, it started raining on the way. There was water in my eyes. I wanted to wipe them with my sleeve but found that half of my arm was already wet." Seeing Jason still standing silently at the door looking at me, I suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. "Taxis don't stop nearby." Before I could finish, Jason took the umbrella handle. He pursed his lips without smiling and put the thin coat he had taken off earlier on me. "You're all soaked." Only then did I realize how messy I looked. I instinctively wanted to take off the coat and return it to him. "Do you want to catch a cold?" Jason simply put the coat on me. At this time, someone beside us was picked up by a private car. Only then did I realize that unlike me, Jason might not need to rush to catch a bus or a taxi in the rain at all. Just then, Jason touched my arm. "Emily, when is the next bus back to school?" I looked at him sideways, a bit puzzled but still opened the app on my phone. "It's coming in 5 minutes." Jason bent down to roll up his trouser legs. He looked at the rain that almost reached the steps, then stuffed the umbrella back into my hand and squatted down. Seeing that I didn't move, Jason calmly looked back. "Come on, or we'll miss the bus." I was stunned for a moment. "Don't your family come to pick you up?" "Yes." Jason nodded seriously. "Aren't you here to pick me up?" His eyes were deep and bright, the corners of his eyes slightly curved, and his expression was serious but not forced. I met those star-like eyes for a moment and then nervously averted my gaze. In the end, I still climbed onto Jason's back. After all, in this situation where we had to wade through water, his 189-centimeter height was obviously an advantage. Jason lifted his arms behind him to hold me firmly, then stood up and rushed into the rain. The slanting heavy rain immediately enveloped us. The solid-colored t-shirt on Jason was soaked, showing his strong back inside. I held the umbrella with one hand and wrapped my other hand around the young man's neck. My palm was cold and still had the wetness of the rain. After the heavy rain, there came a rare fine day. After uploading the project report, the tutor unexpectedly gave us 2 days off. So, Orange was naturally sent to me again. "I'll pick him up on my birthday," Jason said. His birthday was at the end of the month. I held Orange and browsed Taobao for a while, but finally decided to go to the mall to buy him a gift. My roommate came along excitedly to offer advice. "Is it a guy or a girl? How old is he/she? How tall and how heavy? Is the figure good?" I had to report Jason's details to her one by one. My roommate made a prompt decision and led me to a trendy brand store. "Didn't you say he always wears clothes from this brand? When giving a gift, you must buy the smallest but most exquisite item within your budget," she said. "This kind of hat is quite good." It was my first time in a trendy brand store. I walked over and casually flipped a price tag. I was shocked at once. A hat actually cost 4 digits. My roommate also fell silent. After we came out of the trendy brand store, we planned to go to the nearby convenience store to buy a bottle of iced water to calm down. After walking a few steps, my roommate secretly pulled my sleeve. Following her hint, I turned my head. At first sight, I saw Jason in the crowd. Besides 2 friends, there was also a girl I had never seen before. A girl so beautiful that she even seemed a bit aggressive. At the moment, she was walking beside Jason, casually fanning herself with the baseball cap in her hand. They say Jason seems to be in a relationship recently. Could it be with that girl? There was envy in my roommate's tone. The hat in her hand is the same style as the one in the store just now. Is this the gap in the world? Looking at the group of people who entered and exited luxury stores as casually as if they were visiting a market, I suddenly felt relieved. Everyone has different family backgrounds and life experiences. Jason has his own social circle and values. I have mine too. The things we give to each other are essentially equal. There's no need to make myself humble or embarrassed just to fit into his circle deliberately. So I took my roommate to the store on the basement floor. "This is a water cup I've liked for a long time," I said as I took an orange thermos with various little cats printed on it from the crowded shelves. My roommate picked up the pink and white cherry blossom cat cup beside it. "This one is so cute too." "I like it too," I said, smiling and pouting. "It's a pity my wallet doesn't." Jason's birthday soon arrived. He chose the apartment with a view of the river as the venue for the party. I took a day off and went there early to settle Orange down. Jason had just woken up. The birthday boy was still in his pajamas, sleepily taking the cat carrier. "Son, have you gained weight again?" When he was a few months old, Orange had changed from a delicate kitten to an oily uncle. But his father was so biased that he insisted his son was the most outstanding handsome cat in the neighborhood. The plump Orange had already regarded this apartment as his territory. After walking out of the cat carrier, he habitually walked towards his food bowl, leaving only his fluffy butt to Jason. Jason felt the air full of cat hair and yawned. "I've called. They said we can take Orange for neutering soon." I squatted down, threw the newly bought chew ball beside the cat bed, and picked up Orange's 2 front paws with a smile. Our little cat is going to be a eunuch soon. The sunlight shone into the living room through the French windows. Orange squinted and dozed off in the warm light. "Should we lock him in the guest room?" Jason thought for a while. He shouldn't be shy around people. That's right, the little furball has always lived by eating whatever food it could get from different places. It even knows how to secure long-term meals for itself. If one meal ticket isn't enough, it finds two. After changing his clothes, Jason spotted the gift bag beside the cat carrier. Is this for me? I hummed an affirmation, just something I picked up at the mall a few days ago. He walked over, leaning casually against the desk in front of me and lightly arching an eyebrow. I saw you. Bewildered, I looked up. What? I saw you on the second floor of the mall, he said, peering down at me. You were buying icy drinks with your friend then. Unsure how to respond, I hesitated. Should I say I was caught up with friends? Or mention that I saw him shopping with his girlfriend? Instead, he suddenly leaned in slightly. Did you see me? Pressing my lips together, I finally shook my head. He didn't push but slowly unwrapped the gift. Spotting the orange tumbler inside, he chuckled. You really got this for me? This is unexpected. Knowing it didn't suit his style, I flushed with embarrassment. No, this is actually, but Jason had no intention of returning it. He pulled open a drawer and took out another thermal mug. I bought this earlier by mistake, consider it your gift now. With undeniable determination, he pressed it into my arms. Helpless, I removed the dust cover and gasped. Inside was that pink and white cherry blossom cat water bottle I'd longed for but couldn't afford. That afternoon, after settling Orange in, I tried to slip away. The gathering was small, filled only with Jason's closest friends. Jason didn't insist I stay, but his childhood buddies wouldn't let it slide. Emily leaving? That's unacceptable. Without her calming presence here, chaos will break out. Still clueless, I found myself forcibly detained. After sharing cake, someone suggested heading to the riverbank to stroll and explore the night market, particularly a new haunted wedding-themed escape room featuring live actors. While I rejected the idea immediately, Jason's friends overruled me and promptly called in a female companion. That's when I met that girl for the second time. I canceled all tonight's plans. If this isn't entertaining, you're all becoming my entertainment, she declared playfully. After casually handing her bag to one of the guys, she joined the crowd entering the escape room. Bright, confident, wealthy, and beautiful, in every sense, she stood as Jason's equal. She glanced at me without comment, offering only the faintest smirk. The introductory setup was unnecessarily drawn out but intense. Huddled in the dim chamber, my palms grew clammy with sweat. Jason sat some distance away. In the darkness, everyone's features blurred indistinctly. Once the experience began, I realized others felt as unnerved as me. One of Jason's friends let out a blood-curdling scream first, kicking off the eerie wedding scenario. Racing blindly to evade actors, I stumbled until a hand yanked me under an altar table. It was the girl. Thank you, I gasped breathlessly, struggling even to say those two words. She chuckled teasingly, such a scaredy cat you are. It's my first time, so. I started defensively but trailed off weakly. Unexpectedly, she ruffled my hair. So adorable, no wonder they always invite you along. I was stunned. Cute? It was the first time I heard someone use this word to describe me. But the girl didn't explain. Instead, she suddenly covered my mouth and said, "Here come the ghost soldiers." Sure enough, the sound of iron chains dragging on the ground slowly approached. It lingered here for a while and then slowly left. The girl pulled me out. She looked a bit troubled. We have to find the door. The door should be over there, I pointed to an inconspicuous hanging painting in the corner. The sound came from here just now. With someone beside me, I was obviously calmer than before. After leaving the ancestral hall, we entered the scene of the wedding ceremony. In the dim environment, 2 red paper lanterns hung high. On the offering table below, there was a dragon phoenix candle on the left, while on the right was a white wax candle. A coffin was placed in the position of the main hall, and it was empty. I soon knew why it was empty. Because the girl was caught and locked inside. Outside, I was forced to wear a wedding dress and wait to marry the next unlucky person. Then Jason and his good buddy showed up. As soon as his buddy heard about the wedding ceremony, he was the first to step forward. When he saw me in the wedding dress, he was completely shocked. Sorry to interrupt. I'm leaving. The NPC and I were equally confused. But we had no choice but to drag Jason in. We bowed twice to the coffin as required. Suddenly, a strange sound rang out. The speaker was so close to me that I instinctively trembled. The ghost girl's voice was full of sobs, and I got goosebumps. But Jason quietly stuffed something into my ear. It was a small Bluetooth earphone, playing the soothing sound of rain. After meeting up with Jason, the following parts suddenly became easier. But after coming out of the exit, everyone was sweating from the experience. The girl tied up her hair and was sitting on the railing, touching up her makeup. One of the boys bought several bottles of iced drinks. The girl took 2 bottles and walked over to hand one to me. Just then, Jason came back, also holding 2 bottles. The girl looked at the ones in his hand and pouted, "Yours are too sweet." Jason's childhood friend came over empty-handed. "Please, I don't mind the sweetness. I'm dying of thirst." I was amused and took the tea drink from the girl. "Thank you so much just now." "You really should thank me." The girl looked at me and lowered her voice. "Strictly speaking, we're rivals in love." I didn't understand. She pointed at Jason. "I like him too." After the stroll, the girl took a taxi back to her own school. With a heart full of worries, I followed Jason to pick up Orange and go back to the dormitory. Orange probably had finished running around and was lying at the door, sleeping. When it saw us coming back, it walked to the cat carrier on its own and squatted down to lick its paws. Jason walked over and ruffled its head fur. He asked me, "Do you think it considers itself a shared cat?" Although I thought it just felt like it had become a citizen of the meow country, I still suggested, how about giving it a name? They say pets have a sense of belonging once they have a name. Jason agreed deeply. "Then call it Orange." Jason suddenly laughed. "You name it, Emily." He scratched the orange cat's neck and stroked it from the head to the back. The kitten squinted and let out a comfortable purring sound. But as soon as Jason stopped, it stretched, shook its fur, and walked towards me. Jason was both angry and amused. He walked over and picked up the orange cat. Ungrateful little thing. Back in the dormitory, the roommates hadn't come back yet. I turned on the desk lamp and prepared to preview my lessons, but I just couldn't focus on the books. The girl had said she also likes Jason. But she also said, but Jason doesn't like her. Since I'm so outstanding with so many people pursuing me, why should I be with someone who doesn't love me? What about you? Do you like Jason? Do I like Jason? But if Jason doesn't even like such an outstanding girl, who would he like? It rained all night. Orange somehow ended up on my bed, the fur on his back soaked through by rain, looking utterly pitiful as he snuggled by my pillow. This broke my heart. After wrapping him in a towel, I sent a message to Jason. Before I could even put my phone down, Jason called back. My roommates were asleep, so I had to hide under the blankets, clutching the cat while answering the call. Jason sounded flustered and angry, sternly insisting he'd teach Orange a lesson tomorrow. Orange mewed pitifully in my arms. I stroked his head, the fur was still damp and hadn't dried. This made me feel even worse, and I whispered a defense, "The kid didn't mean to." Jason fumed, "He can even open locks now." I stared at Orange in shock. Orange burrowed into my arms and let out a tiny, high-pitched mew. My heart softened just then, fawning over Emily won't help. Jason stayed cold and ruthless on the other end. But I froze for a second. Jason went silent abruptly too. After a moment, I stumbled over my words to change the subject. "Over here. My roommates are asleep." I awkwardly hung up. The night was still dark, but holding Orange, I couldn't sleep. Half a month later, Jason was taken abroad by his advisor for a 1-month academic conference. Reluctantly, he entrusted his only pet to me entirely. By June, cats near the dormitory began going into heat, and even Orange got restless. It reminded me that Jason had mentioned getting Orange neutered last month. Finding time to carry the hefty cat, I visited a few vet clinics and booked a full neutering package. The cost was steep, but after pooling my savings and scholarship, I could handle it for a while. Before the surgery, I joined the vet in acting out a scene of forcible seizure and losing a beloved pet. But Orange eyed us indifferently, as if he'd long seen through us foolish mortals. Unexpectedly, trouble struck right at the start. Orange had an allergic reaction to the anesthesia. His body twitched slightly as he was wheeled to the far end of the corridor. I followed a few steps before dizziness hit. Shaking, I tried to call Jason but remembered he was overseas. Dazed, I gripped my phone as a staffer ushered me to a bench in the waiting area. When Orange was wheeled out, I was still disoriented. For a moment, it seemed like that plump little cat would leap off the cart and fling himself into my arms. But he didn't. He lay motionless on the cart, only the faint rise and fall of his chest showing he was alive. "He'll pull through, right?" I asked the doctor like a drowning person clutching at straws. The doctor's mask hid their expression as they stated flatly, almost by rote, "We'll do everything we can." Orange was unconscious, not out of danger yet. I withdrew funds from my account, watching them vanish into the hospital bills numbers. A full 3 days later, the little cat woke from his coma. Seeing how much thinner he looked broke my heart. He didn't even have the strength to meow. I rubbed his head. He was weak but still struggled to nudge my palm with his head. Eyes red, I told him over and over that Emily wouldn't give up on him, Emily would cure him. The bill drained my last savings, and my part-time job couldn't advance me any pay. I asked my friend if she knew any jobs that paid daily. She hesitated for a moment and then quietly led me to the place where her cousin worked. The music in the bar was deafening. A stylishly dressed girl put her arm around my shoulder and said, "Can you carry trays and do basic math? That's all you need." She took me to change into the waiter's uniform and didn't forget to give me some advice: take the tips when you get them. If someone acts inappropriately towards you, find the security guard to deal with him. Working part-time in the bar was not easy. There were many drunk customers and a lot of annoying situations. Occasionally, there were also some people who tried to flirt or make inappropriate physical contact, but the experienced staff helped me handle them. Fortunately, the tips were really good. If I saved a bit, I could cover Orange's medical expenses. I had classes during the day, worked part-time at the bar until midnight, and also went to the hospital to accompany Orange when I had free time. Even my roommate joked that I had been acting mysteriously lately, walking as if I was floating, asking if I had read too many books and had my energy sucked away by the so-called beauty in the books. One day, while I was stroking Orange's fur, I suddenly received a call from Jason. He had returned to China. I felt quite complicated. I hadn't told him about Orange's hospitalization from beginning to end. But as Orange's real owner, Jason was the one who should have known about it the most. However, I didn't tell him as soon as we met. Jason had been away for a month, and his good friends secretly prepared a welcome party for him. I accidentally got involved and it was not good for me to just leave. After a month's absence, Jason didn't change much. He was dragged to the restaurant by a few friends and didn't even have time to change his clothes. At this time, the young man probably hadn't adjusted to the time difference yet. He leaned against the back of the chair and sat calmly in the main seat, holding a thermos cup and drinking tea. It was an orange thermos cup printed with all kinds of cute cats. One of his childhood friends couldn't help laughing and said, "Good brother, where did you get this?" Jason looked up at him and asked, "Are you envious? Don't you have any taste? It was given by Emily. How cute it is." Another guy gave the laughing boy a light punch and quickly stuffed the menu into his hand, saying, "Hurry up and order. Emily, don't sit there by the serving aisle. There's an empty seat next to me. Come and sit here." I couldn't decline, so I picked up my backpack and was walking over when Jason stopped me on the way. "It's next to the air conditioner over there. The wind is too strong. Just sit here." The guy clicked his tongue and said, "Fine, I'm doing a favor for someone else." Jason laughed and threw 2 cherries at him. Sitting next to Jason did reduce some of my uneasiness. The guys didn't drink alcohol and the meal didn't drag on. Someone suggested going somewhere else to do something else, but Jason just waved his hand casually and said, "It's okay. My family bought shares in this hotel at the beginning of the year. I'll just say hello to the manager later." Everyone let out a teasing "you dash." This was a 5-star hotel standing in the bustling business district, and it was also the first high-end hotel I had ever been to. Looking at the others who quickly returned to normal after the teasing, I suddenly understood what an insurmountable gap there was between different social classes. Jason and I seemed to belong to different worlds from the very beginning. After the meal, one of the childhood friends suggested playing the then newly popular Truth or Dare. But it was hard to have much fun when playing with people you knew too well. So after making a few phone calls, 8 or 9 boys and girls, some I knew and some I didn't, gathered together. We sat in a circle. After the soda bottle spun a few times, the questions in the truth part became more and more spicy. Dare became the fallback option. After playing for a while, the person before the childhood friend spun the bottle to my position. I was a bit surprised. This was the first time today. The boy and I were both studying finance. He was actually my senior. He was quite outgoing and good-looking, so he was a bit well-known in our department. When he found that the bottle pointed at me, he was a bit surprised at first, but then he smiled. Seeing that I chose truth, he asked me a question in a joking tone. "Emily Brown, the person I saw at Kale Bar last time, was that you?" My face suddenly paled. Even though I'd been careful to avoid acquaintances from the same school, I hadn't expected to be recognized after all. Working at the bar, though I did it with a clear conscience, who knows how many twisted versions it would morph into once it reached others' ears. Before I could speak, Jason suddenly snapped, "Since you saw Emily, how come you didn't see me?" He glanced back at his childhood friend, who also laughed and said, "That place is my family's. We treated Emily to fruit platters as tutoring fees. Got a problem with that?" The people around started snickering. Sun Tzu, what were you even doing there? Sun Tzu, face white, excused himself and left early. Jason sneered as he pulled his gaze back. Next. No way, after Truth or Dare, there's still a dare. Unable to resist the drama-loving few, Jason offered the card box for me to draw from. My mind was stuck on how Jason had just covered for me, and my hand accidentally brushed the box's edge. His fingers were cool, the touch light, yet a flutter spread and surged wildly from my fingertips. The dare I pulled was to call the most recent person in my phone's call log and confess. I sighed in relief. After all, no one knew the barrenness of my social circle better than me. Scrolling through the call log, the top name was Jason, sitting right next to me. I instinctively killed the screen. Jason tilted his head curiously. "What's wrong? Who's the first person?" I met his eyes. Jason froze, then coughed abruptly and whipped his head away, flustered. Emily's phone broke. Next. At that, everyone made a drawn-out, knowing my face burned, the phone clenched like a ticking time bomb. That round was skipped in the end. When it comes down to it, Jason's affable front couldn't erase the wariness his wealth induced. Seeing him as the confession target, no one pushed it. The game dragged on until 8 p.m. The sky already darkening. People trickled out one by one, leaving just Jason and me. The room felt abruptly empty. Jason rose. I assumed he was leaving, but he just moved to shut the door crack tight. I halted, baffled and rooted. Jason turned back and blurted, "What happened on the 17th and 18th? Those 2 days lined up perfectly with Orange's rescue. You ignored every message I sent then, but on the 19th, suddenly everything was fine." I pressed my lips together, dropping my gaze, lost for words. Had I failed to care for him? Had I acted recklessly and caused this? It all sounded pitifully hollow. Jason suddenly lunged to my side, stumbling over his apology. "I'm sorry, you don't need to fear it or remember. I shouldn't have asked." He swiped at my eyes with his hand. "I'll handle anything, anyone for you, just say the word. Don't cry." That only deepened my guilt unbearably. "It's my fault. Orange was hospitalized." "Orange?" Jason paused mid-motion, softly cursed after a beat, then laughed. "Fuck, how embarrassing." He wiped his face, realizing belatedly. "Orange is sick." In the pet ward, Jason gently stroked the sleeping Orange, saw the orange cat's ear twitch, and yanked his hand back. "This wasn't your fault." I shook my head, forcing a casual tone. "I get the logic, I just can't shake the guilt fast." Jason offered a soothing smile, leaning toward the little cat on the bed. Whispering, he added, "Emily's done all she can, leave the rest to Jason, okay?" After Orange was discharged, Jason's friends even staged a full-blown celebration. The thinned-down Orange sat on the robot vacuum cleaner, condescendingly snatching the finest salmon belly from Jason's hand. Behind him, two uncles set off an air firework and swiftly unfurled a red banner reading congratulations on Orange's recovery. The other two solemnly joined in with enthusiastic applause. Orange raised its tail and circled around their feet before plopping down right in front of me. Meow, I couldn't resist and rubbed its fluffy white belly. Meow, the orange cat acted spoiled, purring comfortably from its throat. Waves of wails rose from across the room. "Oh, Uncle's heart is broken. Why? When it was a kitten, it used to let me hold it. It only loved you briefly out of boredom." The childhood friend whimpered, "Jason, how can such icy words come from your warm mouth?" Jason snorted, walked over, and scooped up Orange. "Orange, do you love Daddy or Mommy?" My face flushed hot, and I instinctively lowered my head. Orange calmly licked its paws in Jason's hands, then climbed onto his arm and perched on dear old Dad's shoulder. The childhood friend teased him, "Jason, do you really have the nerve to ask Orange whether it loves Mommy or Daddy? Aren't you just inviting humiliation?" Another one gave him a knuckle rap from behind. "What do you know? Let's go. Time for class." Jason waved them off. "No classes this afternoon for me, you guys go ahead." I grabbed my backpack and started toward the others, but Jason shut the door first. He rubbed his nose, muttering softly. I felt a bit awkward saying it in front of others earlier. I nervously twisted my fingers, standing there unsure where to look. Jason gathered himself and looked up again. "Actually, I've wanted to say this for a long time. Emily, are you willing to give Orange a complete family?" I paused, then burst out laughing. "What is this?" But Jason didn't laugh. He took 2 steps forward, speaking in a calm, solemn tone. "It means a relationship that starts with dating and leads all the way to marriage." Those simple words slammed into my heart. My fingertips trembled, but I steadied myself and nodded. "I agree. To date you," Jason emphasized firmly, "and marriage." I pursed my lips, smiling. "Maybe after graduation, you'll think we're not right for each other." He suddenly hugged me, frowning slightly. "In the future, I'll work to become better and worthy of you." I laughed it off. "I meant me, Jason. Don't you get it?" Jason stared blankly. "Why would you think that? Don't you realize how incredible you are?" He held me tighter, his voice tinged with hurt. "My family and friends have been putting me down, saying that without Orange as a connection, a top student like Emily would never give me the time of day. How could that be? You're the one I could never reach." Jason took my hand and placed it on his face. "Well, this person is yours now. Give him a bit of confidence, okay?" My heart melted, my eyes stinging. Okay. We both needed to give each other more faith. Another winter break rolled around, and Orange had finally grown into a truly big orange cat. The 4-person dorm couldn't handle a chunky feline any longer, so I applied to move out, hauling my home and cat with me. After earning my professional certification, more part-time jobs became available, some even offering generous pay. I rented a tiny studio apartment, just 1 room leading to a living area, but it was plenty for 1 person and a cat. Yet within days, the more than enough studio started to feel cramped. "Honey, can I hang my coat here?" I folded my arms, watching the guy stuff clothes into the closet, and coldly refused. "No." "All right, I won't hang up now." Jason quickly agreed. He took the expensive coat off the hanger, carelessly balled it up, and stuffed it into the closet. I sighed and shook out the wrinkled coat to hang it back on the hanger properly. Once a crack opened up, some people became even bolder. After cramming together for half a year like this, I had clarified my academic interests and direction, and started preparing for graduate school entrance exams. Jason expressed full support for me and promptly cleared out a room overnight in the Riverside apartment. "What?" I was baffled. Jason calmly and meticulously analyzed, "The environment here is quieter. The transportation is more convenient. And the internet is faster. It was too persuasive to argue against. But when I started gathering study materials, a hitch emerged. Or rather, an unavoidable issue finally surfaced. Jason found out that the university I was applying to wasn't in the country. We had our first big argument. He stubbornly insisted I was abandoning him after playing with his feelings, because I had once rejected his proposal to study abroad together. This tall, handsome young man looked downright pitiful. He stood at the doorway, eyes reddening, and asked, "Did you decide on this a long time ago?" I wanted to nod but wanted even more to go over and hug him. Yet I knew we both needed to cool off at that moment. So I chose to push the door open and leave. Orange followed me out, its chubby body bouncing along, even the tips of its fur fluffed up. It ran a few steps, then turned and crouched in front of my shoes. Meow, I nudged it gently with the toe of my shoe, but it stayed completely still, as steady as a mountain. I walked around it and took 2 more steps forward, and it repeated the same move. Meow, I was torn between laughing and crying, so I bent down to pick it up. No, Mom and Dad haven't divorced. Back at our rented little place with Orange, I was exhausted and sweaty, and hadn't even had a sip of water before the doorbell rang. Jason stood at the door, expressionless. I thought he was here to confront me, but as soon as the door opened, the man unexpectedly squeezed in. "Honey, I'm sorry," he said cautiously, gently taking my fingers. "Can you not rush off to your old home with our son every time we fight?" I stated. It was the son who followed me back willingly. Inside, Orange was expertly fetching its mouse toy from under the couch. Jason patted its head and declared earnestly, "My son and I are inseparable." I boiled a fresh kettle of water, and on my way back, added casually, "Your son has been neutered now." Jason quickly covered Orange's ears. How could you mention its sore spot right in front of the child? Pouring 2 cups of hot water, Jason and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, blowing gently to cool them. Jason suddenly brought up the earlier topic again. "How long have you been planning this decision?" "Since I finished the college English test level 6, I admitted without hiding anything. "So, was I part of your future plans?" Jason looked at me seriously, though his once deep, bright eyes now seemed veiled with mist, concealing too many emotions. For a moment, I forgot how to reply. Jason gave a short laugh, then tilted his head back. "If I pull out the ring right now, would it seem way too ridiculous?" Watching Jason's fingertips tremble slightly, I stayed quiet for a moment, then answered softly, "I do." Jason suddenly straightened his posture, then frantically fumbled in his coat for the ring. I walked over and held his shoulders. "Jason, no matter when or where, I would always accept your proposal. But not now." Jason looked up, a whirlwind of emotions passing through his eyes, yet he said nothing. He trusted my reasons. He trusted me. So, holding on to that trust, I shared my thoughts. I don't want to be just Mrs. Wilson, or as a mother. I want people to think of my own name first when they mention me. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. I leaned down to embrace Jason. Though the man was full of doubts, he didn't interrupt me. He just wrapped an arm around my waist and listened quietly to all my thoughts. "So, I poured out my visions for the future. I want to stand closer to you, even closer, on my own strength. I hope that in the future, I'll be your equal partner in strength. Your retreat. The battle cry that lets you charge ahead without looking back." Jason tightened his hands. His voice was muffled, his eyes red, yet he stubbornly met my gaze. "Do those things you just said count as a proposal?" I smiled. "Of course they do." Then I saw him take my right hand and place a reverent kiss on my ring finger. "I do too. No matter the time difference from 116 degrees east to 41 degrees north. Or the distance spanning the Pacific. My heart is not made of stone, it cannot be turned.